Welcome to the ILL-INI segment of the Coach Steve Show podcast, where this segment we discuss everything in athletics with the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana. So make sure you hit the like button, subscribe button to the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel. Find the playlist to find the ILL-INI segment. Again, where everything Illinois athletics related will be found there. We also have a Bleed Blue segment, which discusses everything in Eastern Illinois University athletics. Bear Down segment, where co-host Zach Kalman comes on weekly to discuss the Chicago Bears. And then we have other episodes out there, discussions with high school football coaches, college football coaches, and just other things. So there's something out there for everybody. So make sure you like and subscribe to the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel. This is the ILL-INI segment. Illinois is set to take on the Kansas Jayhawks. Kansas will be traveling to Champaign-Urbana, ranked number 19th in the nation. Illinois is still unranked. Both teams are 1-0 after week one wins. Big week one wins for both of them. Illinois looks to try to get quote-unquote revenge on Kansas after last year. Last year, Illinois traveled to Kansas, and Kansas won 34-23 after Kansas scored 14 points in the first quarter and 14 points again in the second quarter. We are going to discuss Illinois' keys to the game to try to come out of Champaign with a victory over Kansas and start the season 2-0. Some people think that Illinois can only win 5 to 8 games, and this is one that they feel like they could lose, and they want to win this game, obviously, for their record, and then compete in the Big Ten, because then next week they have Central Michigan, and then they start their Big Ten play at Nebraska, which everybody thinks Nebraska is a playoff team this year, thanks to the new coaching staff, and it just never gets easier from there. Penn State, Purdue, Michigan, Oregon, Minnesota, Michigan State, Rutgers, and finish off the season with Northwestern. So Illinois is going to be hosting Kansas Jayhawks. It is sold out. This is the first sold-out game since, I believe, 2016 at the University of Illinois, which is fantastic. Give credit to Coach Bielema and the athletic staff there to bust out, sell some tickets, and make this a great home environment. That will be a great home environment when they kick off at 6 p.m. Central Time at Champaign-Urbana. Illinois is coming off a win over Eastern Illinois University in week one. And Kansas is also coming off a win over Leidenwood. And Eastern will be playing Leidenwood later on in the year. Small world there. But they both are coming off a win. 45-0 victory over Eastern, and then 48-3 victory over Lindenwood. Last year, it did not go very well for Illinois. And when you listen to press conferences, they do refer to last year. But like I talked about on the Bleed Blue segment, if you check that out, I said last year is last year. You could have the exact same players on the exact same team come in and call the exact same first play that you did last year, and it will go different. Something will go different. Kansas lost a couple players. One of them is actually on the Bears for the defensive end. But they do have Daniels back at quarterback, and he is the guy that makes the Kansas offense go. When he is healthy, they are a juggernaut of an offense. Kansas lost their offensive coordinator, so be very curious to see how the offense adapts. Coach Leipold has done a great job coming there from Buffalo and resurgence of Kansas. They're getting they're adding on to their stadium and upgrading some things. So Kansas is known as a basketball school. They are now, if they can keep this rolling, can now maybe be known as, hey, we can compete in football as well. But last year, Kansas came out and punched Illinois in the mouth. Listening to these press conferences, to these coaches, they still remember last year, and I think they'll show some clips of last year's game and show them how not ready we were for the game and how we did not take them as seriously, because Kansas, ever since 2009, I believe, or 6, somewhere in there, when they went to the Orange Bowl, they were 11-1 or 12-0. They were at a really good season. They just haven't really been that team, and now they are very much competing. I mean, they're ranked number 19 in the nation. So last year, Daniels was 21 of 29, 277 yards and 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Neal, their running back, had 10 carries for 120 yards and 1 touchdown. They just came out and punched Illinois in the mouth. Luke Altmaier did not play well. He was 19 of 28, 202 yards, 1 touchdown to 2 interceptions. And then it's not a good game when Luke Altmaier is your leading rusher. He had 70 yards for 2 touchdown rushes. That was the only way they could stay in the game. Their leading receiver for Illinois in that game, Isaiah Williams, who is now gone, had 6 receptions for 99 yards. And a lot of that stuff did not come until second quarter and especially the second half. Illinois scored none in the first last year, 7 in the second, 8 in the third, and 4th, or 8 in the fourth, 8 in the third as well. And so that stuff didn't really come in until, they were down by, 20-some points. So they showed some life in that game. I think they're going to show clips of the mistakes they made and say, hey, this is not a normal Kansas team that we're used to seeing, and we cannot afford these same mistakes. We cannot turn the ball over as well. So they are looking towards this game. It is going to be a very tough game. Right now, Kansas is favored by 5.5. They've only played each other in football 6 times. It is tied actually 3-3. Last year, Kansas was 9-4. And in the Guarantee Rate Bowl, they beat UNLV 49-36. Kansas is looking to try to see if they are going to compete in the Big 12 and somehow, some way sneak into the playoff. That is their goal. Coach Lance Leipold has done a fantastic job. They are put back on the map. They are someone to be talked about. Yes, here it is. It is the first sold-out game at Illinois since 2016. In Leipold's 39 games as a coach, Kansas Jayhawks have piled up 500 or more total yards 13 times. So the big matchup here is going to be the first matchup, and the first keys that we're going to talk about is the Illinois defense. And I've brought this up a million times. The defense is not what it was a couple years ago. It's not going to be. I don't know if it ever will be at all. But I think that the defense this year is going to be way more ready to go than they were last year. Coach Bielema talked about in his press conference. They went to Kansas last year, and it was a very loud environment. He hadn't coached at Kansas versus Kansas since he was at Kansas State. And so it was just this eruption that he was like, even he was like, oh my gosh. Coach Aaron Henry, it was his first time being a defensive coordinator last year. That was the first hostile environment he'd been in. The players, he basically said the players didn't come out pumped up and fired up, ready to play, which is no excuse, and it's inexcusable. So that's going to be a key matchup. Can the speed of the Illinois defense keep up with the speed of Kansas Jayhawks? And Daniels looks like he's going to play. He's had some injury problems. They are going to have to game plan around him. He can throw the ball really well. He commands the offense really well, and he can also run. And so the speed of the linebackers are going to have to come into play, and they are going to have to get pressure. They are going to have to try to do their best to make him uncomfortable. And what I mean by uncomfortable is he has to move out of the pocket within 1.5 seconds. It has to be something quick. They're going to have to disguise some things. Last year in the game, Kansas was using different funky formations and different runs, different shifts and motions. Now they have a different offense coordinator, so I'm curious to see if the offense is going to look similar to what it was last year for Kansas. Illinois' defense last year, they gave up 24 points 9 times, and they were prone to a lot of penalties. During Eastern Illinois, they showed a lot more poise. I don't believe if they had penalties, it was very less at all. And they showed a lot of life, and, we discussed that on the post game. So Illinois right now has a little bit of confidence in their defense. Can they come out there and say, oh, we cannot allow last year to happen, and we're going to come out there and we can play a lot more man coverage. If we go zone, we're going to be able to tackle the quarterback, because you got to be careful playing man defense if you're going against Daniels. If he can run and use his legs to make some plays and you're in man coverage and you don't see him take off unless you have a spy set against him on a linebacker spying him, then you got to trust that the linebacker is going to be able to tackle him if he takes off. That's why the speeds of the linebackers and our secondary are going to be so important. I think the defensive line is going to be fine. They have a decent number of them, and they can rotate in, and they're very physical. We saw that on display last week. But as long as the linebackers and the secondary are able to do their jobs, they have to keep up with Kansas' offense, and then they cannot allow Kansas to have big plays over their heads. Everything's got to stay in front. And I think as Illinois fans, we have to be okay watching this defense, giving up plays and them getting first downs. I would rather them I'd rather give up a lot of yards and less points. And I know that would go against the statistics. Oh, what about, a couple years ago when Illinois gave up very little yards and very little points? We just don't have that defense anymore. So we have to be okay giving up yards, but giving up less points. As they get close to the red zone, it becomes a lot harder to score. So we cannot allow these big chunk plays, these big runs. You have to make them nickel and dime you down the field, keep everything in front. And you got to hope they make a mistake, and you got to hope that your speed on a play takes over. And if you're Illinois' defense, you have to sit there and say, okay, we forced an interception last year. We're going to have to try to force 2 turnovers. 2 turnovers to try to switch the momentum. It's in our house. It's sold out. It's going to be a loud environment for Kansas. And that it's not the same team, right? You have different coaches. You have different players. But they have to be able to do that. Because one of the key people that we've already mentioned it was Jalen Daniels, quarterback. Coach being able to call Daniels a quarterback, the Illini to treat as a running back, like I just alluded to. You have to make sure he does not run, all right? Like I said, last year he threw for 277 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's a big factor here for Illinois in the defense. When you switch over to Illinois' offense, Luke Altmaier has to play way better. Like we said, we talked about his numbers in the last game. He had 4 touchdown passes against Eastern Illinois, which was a career high for him. He has to continue that type of play. He has to make good decisions with the football. He has to, once in a while, use his legs to get a first down, which he is fully capable of. But I think Illinois is going to have a much better run offense. They have the 1-2 punch, and they have Josh McCray back there. They didn't really use him against Eastern, but they are talking about he's probably going to get used versus Kansas. So if you have all 3 of them, you have Josh McCray, which is big and powerful and fast. Caden Fagan is big and powerful and fast. Then you have Lowry. He is your speed guy. You use the other 2, boom, 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 to get some hard runs, and you put him in. Now he's got a different speed. The defense isn't used to it. That's going to be a big key factor. And then again, kind of the woes of Illinois' offense last year, and I think part of the woes for them to try to come back last year was Isaiah Williams was the only guy. He had almost 100 yards receiving. And I love Isaiah Williams. He's just not your tall, typical receiver where it's crunch time and you got to throw it up to him, right? Illinois has different receivers now that can do that. You have Pat Bryant. You have Zakari. You have these guys that can come in there, and they have to pick one to stop, right? So Pat Bryant, I think, is going to have a big game. He had 2 touchdown catches last week versus Eastern Illinois. He has 11 touchdowns in his whole career, tying for number 12 on the list. He'll jump up to number 7 with a next touchdown. Another key thing is Illinois has not beaten a ranked non-conference opponent since Arizona State was ranked number 22 in 2011. So this is another stake here where if you're Illinois and you have not beaten a non-conference ranked team since 2011, and right now you have the opportunity to do that being Kansas. This is the first time Kansas has gone to Illinois since 1968. They won that game 47-7. Luke, they have to get the receivers going too. Run game has to be there, but then the RPO play action game off of that is going to be deadly. And so I think those are the key factors. And the offensive line is going to have to come out and be very physical. And I know there's a lot of keys to this, but I don't think you can beat Kansas with one of those units not doing their job. You can kind of overcome if the offensive line isn't being very physical. If they're pass protecting well, you're going to pass more. But watching them last week versus Eastern Illinois, you saw a big difference in the physicality, and you saw them be able to adjust. Eastern Illinois took some things away at the inside zone. Illinois wants to run inside zone. They took that away, so they became a GT team. They were pulling guard and tackle. They were passing it a little more. They went to a little bit of outside zone with it. They have to come out and play physical. Kansas is going to have a physical defensive line, and they got to make sure Luke Altmaier has plenty of time. This is going to be a lot of punches thrown in this game. This is not going to be a Illinois beats them by 20. And I don't think it's going to be a Kansas beats Illinois by 20. I don't think Kansas is that same team as last year, and Illinois is going to be a much different team this year, obviously, if you've watched the game against Eastern. So a lot of key factors in this game, and this is a game that we cannot take lightly. I know there's probably some fans saying, oh, look, it's Kansas, and they're coming to our place, we can win. Not the same Kansas team. So if they come out, Illinois has to execute. They cannot turn the ball over. And I do think they're going to have to force some turnovers, and we have to be okay with them giving up yards and less points. That is the only way Illinois would pull out the win. And I think it would, and the two biggest factors are the entire defense and the speed versus Kansas, and adjusting to any shifts, motions, and funky formations that they might come into contact with, and Luke Altmaier and the wide receivers. And I guess it can be technically three, but I think Luke Altmaier has to play much better than what he did last year, and the receivers are going to have to get much more involved. And I think now that you have different threats that you can throw the ball up to, it will open up everything. It will make Luke Altmaier more comfortable. It's 3rd and 3. You actually have a couple options. Do you go to one of your running backs? You have the receivers to throw it up to. So those are the keys to the game for me. I think Pat Bryant's going to have to play well. I think Sakari Franklin's going to have to play really good also, along with Luke Altmaier. Like he cannot afford to miss throws. We cannot afford to throw interceptions. We cannot afford to have any fumbles. We cannot turn the ball over, and we're going to have to force some turnovers. And again, I think another part of this giving up less points and more yards, I think we have to be okay if Illinois were to give up, 17 to 21 points. We have to be okay with that. As long as we go out and score 28 while we give that up, that's totally fine. I don't think Illinois is going to be a team necessarily to always blow out a team and win 45-0 all the time. Maybe next week versus Central Michigan, that's not 100% either, but as you go through the schedule, it's not going to happen. These are going to have to be grinded out. You got to make less mistakes. You've got to become prepared, ready to go. And talking to Illinois staff, they had a lot of guys come back, especially on the O-line and D-line. They feel like they have unfinished business. And I think if they keep that mindset and they go into this game with it, want to put on a big show, don't even think about the big crowd. Yeah, it's awesome. When you go out there, you can look around and soak it in for a second, but you cannot afford to have the pressure of what we got. Like if we're not playing well in front of this crowd and you tense up and you decide not to play well, or your body is not doing it, your mind's going quicker than your body, that stuff cannot happen. And if you're Illinois looking at your schedule, you cannot afford these type of losses if you're hoping to be in the conversation for the Big Ten. And I know they want to make the playoff. There's a big opportunity with 12 teams, but you're looking at right now to compete in the Big Ten in a bowl game playoff. That's the order you want. And I think if they're able to spread the ball around, use the speed of their defense to their advantage to keep up with Kansas's speed and their unique way of calling offense, they will be just fine. Those are the keys to the game for me for Illinois versus Kansas. I think it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a much-watched game. And I never thought you would say that about Kansas football, but they have done a really, 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 really good job there. And Coach Bielema, I think, still continuing doing a great job at Illinois. And as long as they have confidence and can play, they are going to be just fine going against Kansas. So those are the keys to the game for me for Illinois to walk away with a win there. So again, like and subscribe to the Coach Steve Show YouTube channel. This is the ILL-INI segment, everything with University of Illinois athletics. We have Bleed Blue, which is about Eastern Illinois athletics. We have Bear Down, where Zach Kalman joins me, and we discuss the Chicago Bears throughout the regular season, about their games coming up and post games. And then check out, there's also Geek Corner, which talks about a lot of Marvel movies. Logan comes on and we talk about that, my friend Logan. And then we have interviews with high school football coaches, college football coaches from all the levels, all the way JUCO, NAIA, all the way up to Power 5. So there's tons of stuff on there. There's football coaching stuff on there. There's just a lot of stuff. You have to check it out. There's a lot of things on there for everybody. I'm doing my best to organize it into playlists. But you got to subscribe to the YouTube channel to find it. Check out the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Rate it and leave a review there as well. It just helps grow it out. Twitter is Coach_Steve72 and the Coach Steve Show. Instagram, Coach Steve72 and the Coach Steve Show as well. TikTok, Coach Steve72 also. So if you could do all that stuff for me, leave a comment in the comment section down below. What do you think about Illinois in this game? What else do you want to see content-wise from this stuff? Leave comments. Have a conversation, and I will do my best to get back to people on the comments. Very busy. I also coach high school football. So very busy. So thank you guys again for watching and or listening. This is Coach Steve. We'll see you guys next time.